The EU says very good progress has been made in talks with Iran on implementing a nuclear deal that was agreed in November. And Tehran itself insists all outstanding issues have been resolved. But those positive signals have been counterbalanced by an internal row across the Atlantic. The White House says senators who support a bill proposing further sanctions risk pushing America into war. RT's Marina Potnaya explains.
It was just a few months ago inside the United Nations headquarters where the presidents of Iran and the U.S. laid groundwork for new and positive diplomatic relations. However, the historic success achieved over the past 4 months may soon be significantly compromised, if not destroyed, by America's own lawmakers. According to reports, 59 U.S. senators are now backing a new package of unilateral sanctions aimed to increase pressure on Iran for its nuclear program. This means that the Senate is just one vote away from the 60 needed to pass most legislation with the House of Representatives, which has already shown strong support for economic pressure against Tehran. According to reports, the legislation would blacklist several Iranian industrial sectors and threaten banks and companies around the world with being banned from the U.S. market if they help Iran export any more oil. Now, the provisions would only take effect if Tehran violates the 6-month interim deal or lets it expire without a comprehensive nuclear agreement. Now, U.S. President Barack Obama has vowed to veto the bill if it makes it to Congress. But the problem is, if the Senate actually achieves 67 votes, it can override a presidential veto. The Obama administration says additional economic restrictions could threaten a historic diplomatic opportunity with Iran that's been cementing over the past few months. Let's remember, in November, world powers reached an interim deal with Tehran over its nuclear program, and negotiations on a final agreement are still underway. Not only will more sanctions compromise the success that's already been made, but the White House says it will ultimately make a potential war with Tehran all the more likely. Oddly enough, at least 16 Democrats are supporting new sanctions. Sadly, if President Obama's historic diplomatic progress with Iran comes crumbling down, it will be due in part to members of his own party. Reporting from New York, Marina Portnaya, RT.
Senators backing the new sanctions bill claim it will serve as an insurance policy in future nuclear talks. But Jamal Abdi, the policy director of the National Iranian-American Council, thinks this is nothing but a pretext for something much worse.
They claim that this is not a violation of the interim deal. It is a violation of the interim deal. The deal says no new sanctions. This imposes new sanctions. There's a lot of word games being played, but really it comes down to these senators don't want to see a deal. They don't want to see a diplomatic solution. They view this as their way or the highway. Either Iran completely capitulates, potentially you have a regime change or something like that, or the United States is going to go to war. And I think that probably President Obama and the U.S. negotiators would rather be focused on negotiating with Iran to get a nuclear deal rather than having to negotiate with hardliners in the Senate just to protect the nuclear deal that he's already achieved. So he's in a very tough spot. And I think this really undermines the position of the United States going into those negotiations because it conveys this message that the president's not in control of his own foreign policy.